My aunt's house is haunted, not just spooky, but truly unsettling. She's had strange experiences all her life, and it's not just her. Almost everyone in the family, even guests, have had their own chilling encounters. I never had a first-hand experience myself. I only visited during family gatherings, when the house was full of life and noise. But when the laughter faded, when the guests went home, that's when the house showed its true nature. This story happened about 10 years ago. In my aunt's bedroom, the bed was pushed up against the wall. She slept on the inner side, my uncle on the outer edge. Whenever she needed to get up in the middle of the night, she had to climb over him. Since both of them were tall and broad, it was always a bit of a process, something my uncle was used to feeling in his half-asleep state. That night, my uncle stirred awake as my aunt shifted beside him. He felt the bed dip slightly as she climbed over him. The mattress creaked. The floor groaned under her weight. He didn't think much of it until a cold realization hit him. She wasn't home. At that moment, every nerve in his body went rigid. His breathing became shallow and his heartbeat pounded against his ribs. Slowly, he reached for the bedside lamp. The moment the light flooded the room, he saw it. A figure stood in the middle of the room, turned away from him. Its entire body was covered in thick, dark fur, more animal than human. But the face was hers. It was my aunt's face. The thing turned its head, meeting his eyes, and then it smiled, a wide, eerie, knowing smile. My uncle couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then suddenly it ran. Bare feet thudding against the wooden floor, it bolted out of the room. My uncle finally broke free of his shock and scrambled after it. He rushed into the hallway, heart hammering, but when he reached the living room, the thing was gone. There were no sounds, no movement, just the deep, suffocating silence of the house. The next morning, he told my aunt everything. The way the figure had climbed over him, the way it had smiled at him with her face. My aunt listened carefully, but she wasn't surprised. She had lived with the house's secrets for years. Months passed, and the memory of that night never left my uncle. Then something happened that made the story even stranger. An old housemaid who used to work for my aunt came to visit. They exchanged pleasantries, catching up on lost time. Eventually, my uncle's experience came up in the conversation. The moment the maid heard it, her hands trembled. She hesitated for a moment, then finally confessed. She'd seen the same thing. One night, after a late dinner, she was washing dishes outside near the well. The night was cold, and the only sounds were the distant chirps of insects and the soft splashing of water. Then she felt it. A presence, someone standing too close. She turned her head, and her blood ran cold. There, standing just beyond the glow of the kitchen light, was a figure. A tall, shadowy form covered in fur from head to toe. But its face was my aunt's. Its lips curled into an unsettling grin. The maid dropped the dishes and ran. She didn't stop until she was safely inside, breathless and shaking. She never spoke of it, never told anyone. And that was why she quit her job. As she finished telling her story, my aunt's face was unreadable. She simply nodded. Then she said, "That wasn't the first time, and it won't be the last." Over the years, more and more people have claimed to see the same thing. A fur-covered being wearing my aunt's face, watching, waiting. I don't know what it is. I don't want to know. But I do know this. There's still another encounter with that thing. One even scarier than this. Maybe I'll tell that story next time.